This is a very interesting story. A man is claiming that he is suing the NHS after having his genitals removed during gender reassignment surgery, according to the Daily Mail. The unnamed man took to Twitter, claiming that doctors did not prepare him for the drastic outcome of the surgery, leaving him infertile and feeling like a sexual eunuch. The NHS Trust was unnamed. We approached the NHS for comment, who said we would have to approach the Trust directly for a response, but of course the Trust is unnamed. So we are in a bit of a bind there. We do not know any more than what has been reported by the Mail. But this is an issue we expected to come up. Would this be a case of medical negligence? So I'm interested, Laura, let's come to you first. I mean, so we don't know who this is. We don't know which trust it's related to. So we're on safe ground. We can talk about this on a hypothetical level, right? So this is fine. We're safe. But we're getting more and more these stories of detransitioners. Yeah. So people who, when they're very young, they are encouraged, they are affirmed in their gender identity, and they're encouraged to go through these procedures. And then they later regret them. And they say, well, I was too young to consent.
And affirmed is the key word, because I think this is part of the issue with the medical pathway, and that has been to affirm people in their gender. Right. And not to question it too much, even though it could be quite multifactorial. So we know that people who present as trans, particularly young women, because there's been this huge explosion in young women going to gender identity clinics, can have backgrounds of sexual abuse and trauma. They could be neurally divergent, neurodiverse, or maybe have eating disorders and body image issues. It's complicated.
Well, we don't know enough, do we?
And we don't know enough because these people are not tracked. So when you get somebody who detransitions, who perhaps changes their mind, maybe they just stop taking hormones, they often don't go back to the clinic. Now, I worked on a project in 2020 for the Sunday Times with female detransitioners. So that's women who'd thought they were men and then changed their minds. Now, this is one of the most discombobulating and distressing projects I've ever worked on. The idea for me as a woman that I might have all of my female sexual organs removed and then change my mind and regret it. Imagine living with that for the rest of your life. This man is not alone. I spoke to other male detransitioners at the time, including a big group in the US, actually, who were bringing a class action against a surgeon. I have the utmost sympathy for young people who've gone down this pathway. You have to remember, these are fairly experimental surgeries.
Yes.
But and how can young people truly understand?
Well, we have people now, though, activists are now claiming that if a young person goes to a gender clinic, a paediatric gender clinic, and says, I think I'm in the wrong body, I think I'm a different gender, and you don't automatically affirm it, that is a form of conversion therapy. That's what they're saying. Aggie, do you worry at all about children who may be experiencing gender dysphoria and may be pushed into making the wrong decision?
I think what's gone on in the last few years is absolutely horrendous. It's really, really worrying. And I know that the Tavistock Clinic has come under huge sort of criticism.
Well, it's had whistleblowers, of course.
Yes, that's right. What I think is that, young people who have presented as wanting to change their identity, they've been sort of, gone along with far too easily, and then the mistakes are made, and then the whole thing is a nightmare, and it's just massive. And I think that much more thought needs to be, much more time needs to be given to these young people.
So, Tommy, I'm going to bring you in here because, Aggie says that we need a lot more time to discuss that, but that is precisely what activists are saying we mustn't do, that we must affirm immediately.
Well, on that basis, this person here who had the surgery began their transition, I think, in their mid-20s. They're now in their mid-30s. That's 10 years.
Yes.
And they put off the actual procedure, the surgery procedure, for 2 years, according to the article, for 2 years because they weren't sure. So in those 2 years, you've got to do your research, right? You've got to do some homework. If you're going to go through this, and then now he's saying, I didn't know this, I didn't know what the effects of it were going to be. I'm like, well, what were you doing for 2 years?
We're talking about probably, we don't know the specifics about this case, but we're talking about very young individuals, people who are children, effectively. Well, and can they be trusted to make those kind of decisions?
No, I'm unsure about all the decisions that I make, even if is there anything I'm not sure about. And I think for parents to encourage their children to go down a certain path and the school of thought at such a young age is probably a little bit foolish.
I saw some footage the other day about parents who were talking about how they knew their child was trans at the age of 2, and I just don't believe that is possible, frankly.
Of course it's not possible. And some of the signs that parents are told to look for by activists are things like playing with non-conforming toys,
Like a boy playing with
boys'
dolls. Yeah.
This is just ludicrous. And in fact, it plays into really dangerous and old-fashioned sexual stereotypes. I predicted this poor man whose story's in the Mail. We're going to see more of these cases as time goes on. And I think people will look back on this period as something as bizarre and dangerous as lobotomising people.
Well, are we going to see a whole range of lawsuits coming up? This is my thought.
Well, we already are. In the United States, has been the Wild West of gender confirming surgery. And there are lawsuits in the United States, and we will see more of this. And ultimately, that is what will end up changing the landscape, the legal consequences and the money. And it's a shame it's that way around, but I think that's what's going to change.
Final thought, Tommy?
Yeah, just should the NHS be even conducting these operations?
Well, they're very much influenced by Stonewall, aren't they? And Stonewall is telling them that they absolutely should. And so they're going along with it. And this is the problem. I think there is this kind of ideological capture at the heart of all our major institutions, but the NHS in particular.